Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Blood and Vengeance, Part 3, The Ardent Scar. Part 3 of 3 in our Dead Man's Guide, the Dragongrin playtest that has been going on for the last 3 Wednesdays right here on Mini Terrain Domain on Twitch, and also available on YouTube where you can watch it later. Very excited to have had the opportunity to set up this playtest, this 3-part playtest, to sort of stretch out and try out some of these different class options and or race options, as well as these different monster stats. Last week we tested out the marrow. And don't mind me moving the cameras around as I realized I've placed 2 of my players in the wrong positions. Been having heaps of tech difficulties, so thank you for your patience. If you're hanging out in the live chat. And Baron will be along shortly, and we'll do some more camera trickery and get him in his proper place when he does show up. We'll try to execute that with minimal disruption. Before the stream, I asked Barker to roll a d6. He rolled a 4. And then while we were waiting, EverJ and Gamers Theater both resubscribed. EverJ for 11 months, Gamers Theater for 6 months in a row. So thank you for those subscriptions, which have brought our players up to... And my domain dice are in the wrong spot too. Everything is awesome, as they say. I'm just going to fix that like this. See how easy that was. Okay. So, you have 6 domain dice. Just a quick reminder for Tim and Barker. 1 domain die can be used to re-roll any D20 roll that you roll. Or any... 2 domain dice can be used to make me re-roll. 3 domain dice can be used for out of rest hit dice healing. 4 can turn a failed death saving throw into a successful death saving throw. And 5 domain dice can be used to turn any hit into a super critical. It's called the Patron's Blessing. That super critical is worth 2 times max damage. And of course, EverJ mentioned domain dice in the chat, so naturally the rules showed up there. So that's how domain dice work. One thing I do want to say, we're going to take, about halfway through, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and I do have some other announcements and things that will be taking place during that break. But right now, I am in the middle of, I just launched yesterday, a 10,000 subscriber drive on YouTube. We are at over 9,000 subscribers. And if we type into the chat, exclamation point, I'm going to do this right. Type in exclamation point 10K giveaway. There is a link right there and all of the information on free Game Masters bundle prize packs that I'm giving away. Starter sets, miniatures, 6 sets of dice, and a grand prize that includes all of that, plus a Dungeon Master's Guide, a Player's Handbook, a Monster Manual, and a Dungeon Master screen reincarnated. And in case you're wondering, I have all of the prizes right here. I'm not going to show them all, but I mean, these are like still sealed in the box. Starter set miniatures to go along with the D&D 5th edition starter set. And I got myself a set of these dice, the 6-pack of dice, and I'm using some of them tonight. So with that, we're going to sort of recap what's been happening, and we'll get into the play here. This is a play test, so things are going to happen a little bit different tonight, as we don't have a huge amount of time to play through the entire an entire normal session. So we're going to be essentially doing a counter. In the first session, which was called Cage's Reprieve, a group of reluctant or conscripted adventurers, you could say, were guarding the cavern system of settlements that is some of the only safety to be found in the region of Sphere. When they were attacked from Sphere below by vicious creatures called Thought Slayers, the warlock became a thought spawn. The bard became a smoothie, a brain smoothie for one of the Thought Slayers. And the cleric and the Seric. Oh, I like that. That sounds like a good TV show, The Cleric and the Seric. The Cleric and the Seric barely escaped with Kiara Jin, a hero of Lightfall, into the tunnels. In the second part, called The Black Rail, they embarked on a train, a secret rail system, and ancient remnants of a Titan imminence-powered rail system, along with several other soldiers. While traveling along the rail, they were attacked by Marrow soldiers riding giant bats. And they faced off against Marrow legionnaires, commanders, and peacekeepers. They took a couple of them out, but one of our players from last session and tonight, the characters Tawny, the Silverwise Darrow, had a rather intimate knowledge of this particular commander, Vansom Harsh. And Vansom escaped just as the Black Rail emerged into daylight. They were completely surrounded by Gwendolyn Greybone's rebels, who took out several of the peacekeepers that were remaining, but Vansom Harsh escaped on her albino bat. While meanwhile, Winfield Palefinger, who had attempted to take control of one of the other bats, went spiraling off into the distance. And Kiara Jin was seen to have just survived, though she was thought to have been knocked off. Where we pick up tonight, much time has passed. While you were originally setting to rendezvous with Gwendolyn Greybone and her rebels, because there had been information that Caius Vekus, in a moment of weakness, had left the Ardent Scar. No new intel has come in to say that he has returned. It is believed that he was dealing with a sick niece, having family ties somewhere. Gwendolyn wanted to strike immediately, but the Ardent Scar is a nigh impregnable fortress. Its rune-covered door only opened on orders of the dismembered lord himself. This fortress-like city, there are no sewer systems that can be accessed. To attack the city is madness, as legions upon legions of Marrow reside within, and who knows what else. In the interim, the Gwendolyn's Greybone rebels have been planning. Winfield, you actually provided the key to what Gwendolyn and her rebels needed in trying to solve the mystery of how to penetrate the Ardent Scar, as eventually you did gain control of this rogue giant bat. And over the course of the next several months, you were able to carefully capture 3 more giant bats while engaging with Marrow soldiers. It proved to be quite difficult, as you had to find the patrols that were using mounted patrols on these bats, and then be able to take them out while only taking one at a time so as not to arouse suspicion. over the last, we're going to say that it's been 5 months that has transpired. I would like each of you to tell me what your character has gone through. Kind of introduce your character and tell us who or how this character has grown. As mechanically speaking, these characters are now level 8. What have you done in the last 5 months that you have gained so much more experience fighting so close to the heart of Caius Vecus's realm? And what were the something that's like a high point and something that was a low point over the last 5 months? And we're going to start with Tawny.
Tawny was raised under strange circumstances. Both parents dead. Grandparent raised him, but she was too elderly to do anything, really. And so he was actually raised by a tome heart who taught him how to speak, taught him how to write, taught Tawny how to show courtesy in strange, which is somewhat strange given the location of sphere in which Tawny grew up. And so I think Tawny would be very enamored in Aegis, the Silverwise tome heart fighter, because I think that he's probably the first tome heart that Tawny has seen in a long time. And so over the past 5 months, I'd like to think that they grew a little close, and maybe Tawny was able to pick the brain of so the mechanical brain of this being to continue the lessons, so to speak. So I would imagine a lot of late nights learning and studying and convincing Aegis to read me, another tale, even though, come on, I've told you that maybe 3 times in a row or something, again. Whatever Aegis would be capable of teaching, Tawny would absolutely desire to consume.
So with that, we'll move over to Aegis.
Aegis spelunks in the various tunnels and caves. He doesn't really feel fear as a mortal would, but can certainly feel pain and understands what it is to take life. And so as, Tawny is asking these questions and asking these stories, it's jogging Aegis's lost memory. And so in this case, the tome heart of Aegis the Ghoul is his name, his moniker in the arena. Aegis the Ghoul is remembering who he was, and that is how he is leveling up. And so using with precision these things that he's remembering from his past, from eons ago, but mingling it with this newfound friendship with Tawny and beginning to develop the idea, at least as someone from afar could see, what a friendship could be.
Excellent. And Winfield.
As you said, Winfield has been scouring and lurking in these tunnels in along the Black Rail and even farther in more unknown depths. Winfield has been trained to avoid the patrols of the Marrow, yet now he's found himself tasked to seeking them out and eliminating them one by one. And this has caused him to get much more efficient in killing. He's learned their ways, he's learned their tactics, he's learned their positions and ranks and movements and everything about them. With the cost of his own humanity, whatever shard of it is left in the husk of a Sarek has just been replaced by a blood thirsty killer, hell-bent on revenge for this nefarious overseer and villain that rules over this land. And with all these bats in tow, he's just a shell of what he used to be, with just this longbow that's killed too many. But he's killed enough.
Over the past several months, as you have slowly and deliberately captured these bats, and then spent an additional month or two to train them to respond to whomever rides them, never quite able to... Well, you know what? I'm not going to take that away from you. Winfield, I want you to roll me an animal handling check with advantage.
I know the animal friendship spell, if that's going to help out in any way. Because I'm going to be coercing their minds in such a way. So that's going to be a grand total, okay, of an 18. Thanks for the advantage.
So you managed to get them to respond quite well to physical commands in much the way a horse would respond, by squeezing with your thighs, by pulling on one side or the other, and they respond well to any rider. You fall a little bit short of having the precise cerebral connection that it seems that the marrow had with these bats, but it's good enough for what you need. As Gwendolyn pitches you her overall plan, she is also, her and Kiara are asking for your input on how best take on the Ardent Scar. Gwendolyn tells you there is no other way for us to penetrate this fortress city other than the one way that they do so easily and that they think that none would be able to do. We will use these bats, and we will fly in with their patrols, as if we are the marrow. I say we. Really, you know I mean you. I see the way you look at me, Aegis. Your expressions are, well, virtually non-existent, but your body language shows your incredulity. Such a preposterous notion. Please, tell me what your thoughts are.
I understand how you wish to do this, but I also understand the probabilities. If my face could show emotion, it would be disbelief and probably pity.
Pity. Why do you pity?
Pity, as I understand it, is the only thing I can feel, knowing that we'll die. I can't pity myself, but Tawny has taught me to pity others And I think Aegis would pat Tawny's head.
And he kind of shrinks down a little bit. He looks a little disgruntled, maybe afraid, disappointed probably.
I see your hesitation too, Tawny. Yara, her troops have spoken very highly of what the four of you did on the Black Rail. So why do you not accept your greatness? Why do you, in our near moment of, I dare say, triumph, do you show such reluctance?
On the Black Rail, we were cats backed into a corner. And now you ask us to take the beast and back it into a corner. And he pauses for a moment. He looks into the distance, maybe off towards where the Ardent Scar is, and says, I want to go away from that place. I never meant to be here.
A beast bleeds. And Winfield is kind of fidgeting with that vampire tooth that he has.
And Tawny almost immediately gets the point of what you're saying, and almost about to speak up, and then seeing the Fang, nods.
You talk of being backed into a corner. If hell is a place that exists, then all of us who live in Sphere are backed into the corner of the darkest, deepest level of that hell. What choice remains? You never meant to be here. I would say, perhaps someone or something else, the Primordials, the Titans, some mysterious master in the sky controlling our fates, whomever it is. We are all here for a reason, and we all have our purposes.
Tawny doesn't say a word, but he does think of all the limited information he has about death. And he may give Aegis a knowing look. He's never died, but he knows something of what lies beyond. And sometimes that nightmare can make Dragongrin look like heaven.
Kiara has been standing by as well. It is our firm belief the four of you should form the tip of the spear of this attack. But in order for you to even be able to succeed or have the slightest chance, we are going to have to kick the hornet's nest, as they say. Gwendolyn's Greybone rebels and the troops that we've managed to gather, more and more refugees have been arriving from Cage's Reprieve. They were decimated. But there were survivors and able bodies. We are going to attack the walls. The Ardent Scar. We are going to attack the front door. I'm willing to hear any tactical options you may have to offer. Please, don't everyone speak at once.
We have bats.
Yes, as Gwendolyn mentioned, those will be used by the four of you. Infiltrate. When the hornet's nest is kicked, and the hornets are buzzing around, you shall fly down into their midst, blend in, and should be able to access into the Ardent Scar itself unopposed.
I've seen their ranks. I've seen how they move. We can get disguises, their armor, their emblems. Should be easy to blend in. The little one here, however, might need a bit of a assistance to take the shape of a man.
And I think Aegis would sort of look down at himself because he's roughly medium, but bulky, broad-shouldered, looking. It would probably be difficult to put marrow armor onto him. But he looks, and then he looks to Tawny and says, "Perhaps, as you told me, what did you call it again? Panting. Where you place the colored substance and spread it over a surface so that it will dry to make things look different colors."
Ah, yes, painting. Painting.
Yes.
It's a long A.
And then he sort of, whether it's stone or some of the iridescent mushrooms on the cave, sort of finding some of these things, he begins to sort of crush it together to make a white dust. And while it's not thick like a grease paint, it's certainly, and he starts to sort of powder himself so that he at least looks white. So the top of his head, he powders it to look like the top of a Marrow Legionary's helm. And, it's definitely patchwork at best, but it's better than an iron colored or copper colored tome art.
While he's getting ready, I think Tawny would approach Gwendolyn and say something along the lines of, "I'm not very good out in the open, but in the shadows, in darkness, that is where I am at my greatest strength."
I am well aware of your predilection for moving amongst the shadows. It is our hope that once you have penetrated through the defenses of the Ardent Scar, you will find the Lord of Ash's tower, and you will be there when he returns.
Caius Vecus, you want me to be in his tower when he returns?
Well, all of you.
There could be 50 of us.
Jake, would you allow for some sort of roll if I overhear this to see how true what Tawny just said was? Could 50 people really be slain by Caius Vecus? Because that number, that statistic, as Tawny says, there could be 50 of us. It's like I start doing the odds again to see if I still feel that pity.
Yeah, absolutely. Roll an insight check.
Okay. 7 on the die, and that is 7.
Well, whether the numbers make sense or not, and with the time you've spent over the last few months with Tawny absolutely believes it to be true.
And I say that. You are right. 50, I don't think, would do it.
Doesn't matter if we have 50 or 4. We only got 4 bats.
Tawny might at this moment speak up and say the obvious thing that Tawny hasn't actually said yet. Actually, you know what? It's been 5 months, so Tawny would probably know who you people are. Like, who are you people and what are you fighting for? Never mind. He wouldn't. He'd have that information by now.
You're right. If there were 50 of you, your odds would increase ever so slightly, but still be bleak. But the point is, Tawny, it would only take 50 of you. It would take 200 of the rest of us. Whether you want to believe it or not, next to perhaps myself, Kiara here, you are amongst the most powerful warriors we have seen within all the sphere in an age. Yes, we are backed into a corner. Yes, this is a desperate time. But would you rather hide in the shadows and do nothing until eventually the Mero caught up with you?
Tawny would fall silent, stare at the ground a little bit, kick some dust. And under his breath, maybe almost imperceptibly, he would say, No. No, I suppose not.
Precisely.
And I think Aegis would approach Winfield, Palefinger, and he would ask him, do you think this looks like the morrow? And he's sort of covered in this pale white paint. And he basically asks Winfield for his opinion on how close does he look to a marrow.
We'll put a cloak around you.
Ah, yes. And so, and Aegis would start to rummage through his pack and probably find a horse blanket, some sort of really dusty, threadbare blanket, and he would drape it over himself like some sort of shabby bohemian marrow commander. He almost looks like he's doing a vaudeville of a marrow commander is really probably what it looks like. And he leans down and he says, do you think the bats are strong enough to carry my weight?
Well, they better be. These things are massive.
Excellent.
But I'd suggest against carrying any excess goods. Just take what you need. Yourself and a good sturdy blade.
Excellent.
Where we're going, we don't need keepsakes. We don't need souvenirs. We need just tools. That's it.
Tawny looks to Aegis and says, you are one of those tools, as am I. And he steps closer and he says, you do look something of a marrow. But remember, you are much smarter than them. If you find yourself in a fair fight, bad planning.
If Aegis could smile, he would.
It's at this time that Chesser shows up. And I think I got everybody resituated. Thank you for vamping as we get the everybody back into place. Chesser, Baron, to bring you up to speed, the plan is over the last 5 months, your team and the broader team have captured 4 bats and trained them. The expectation by Gwendolyn Greybone and her Sarek rebels is that the 4 of you will be the tip of the spear, disguised as Marrow, and will fly into the Ardent Scar, while Kiara and Gwendolyn lead forces to attack the city itself, to cause a distraction, to kick the hornet's nest, as it were. Chesser, as you show up, you've actually been instrumental in working with Kiara, as over the last few months, several refugees have shown up from Cage's Reprieve. Though Cage's Reprieve was badly overrun by Thought Slayers, a fraction of the populace did manage to escape and make their way through the mountains towards where you are. In no small part to you getting the signal fire lit in time. In tow, you have an elderly woman who was actually one of the only survivors besides you and Brahm of the sluice, that furthest community. This old woman is sort of prodding you along, insisting that she be brought forth to speak to the others. And as Chesser walks up, Chesser, who is this woman, and how do you know her? Why would you let her sort of boss you around and all but grab you by the ear and pull you up in front of the commanders?
Hold on, I have a name somewhere. She is the grandmother of the Parvel kids, the ones prone to scraped knees and cuts and scrapes that Brahm would frequently heal. And to be honest, the only reason I let her do anything to me is because, well, I guess some part of me feels bad. Can I get an idea of like the setting placement of where we're at immediately?
More or less, you guys are in a... The best way to describe it is if you know Game of Thrones, picture Dragonstone and the where the big table is, and it sort of overlooks, it's open to the air, and it's less ornate. It's actually a rift in the rock that looks out in the direction of the Ardent Spear, off in the distance, but is more concealed, since being so out in the open would be dangerous. So you're basically in a war room. Winfield, Aegis, Tawny are there, Kiara Jin, Gwendolyn Greybone, and a few other soldiers.
Now quit pushing me. I'm bringing you to them.
I told you I need to see someone in charge.
Oh, you came to me, and I'm certainly not in charge. That was
Somebody
your first
more
mistake.
in charge than you rotten bag of bones.
You're about under my last nerve, if I had any left, Grandma Parvel.
You just bring me before them before you regret it. Before you all regret it.
I already regret it.
All right.
Here, I brought you to him.
Which one of you is in charge? Oh, you guys are about as communicative as this one here. Certainly not that one over there, painted up like some kind of child's drawing. And certainly not the little Darrow over there. Oh, look, it's another bag of bones.
As she looks around at all of you. What is it that you want, old woman? And Gwendolyn Greybone looks at you, Chesser, like why did you just bring this mutt into my house?
I know what you're up to. I know what you mean to do. You've spent months up here planning and plotting. You think that everybody down there doesn't know what you intend to do? All of you. You plan to take all of our fates in your hands.
And she walks in closer amongst you. She smells of mildew and dirt and sweat. But you almost don't notice it because just about everybody smells that way these days, hiding out in these caves. She walks past you, Winfield, gives just seemingly a snort of derision. She walks up to you, Aegis, reaches up and wipes at some of the chalk powder paint on you.
A valiant effort.
She walks up to you, Connie.
In my experience, the biggest, most dangerous things with the smallest of packages. It would all be wise to watch out for you.
Tawny, in the midst of the bleak and the darkness, grins just a little bit, and then maybe covers his mouth, wipes his face, and wipes it off. Bows his head. Thank you.
As she leans in close to you, Tawny, she takes your hands. Takes one of your hands in both of hers. And she holds in one hand, she holds a very dirty handkerchief. As she clasps your hands, you can feel the cold, almost dampness of this obviously very much used handkerchief against your hand. And she whispers something, or seems to whisper it. Or as she's looking at you, and she's hunched over, she's got a bit of a hunchback, and just age has really forced her down low. So she's practically looking you in the eye. And she's smiling through a nearly toothless mouth at you, Tawny. And you don't really see her lips moving as you hear the words.
All seems bleakest. Shatter this against the stone.
She gives your hands a squeeze, and when she lets go, the dirty rag is pressed into your hand. You can feel something solid and cold inside the handkerchief.
Tawny will take a peek, unravel a bit of the handkerchief to see what lies in there.
Tawny, have you ever seen The Bleak? Have you ever stared into a desolation rift?
No. Tawny, that's probably the one thing, the one horror in Sphere that Tawny has not been subjected to.
But I would imagine you've heard stories of The Bleak.
Yeah.
What you hold, you get just a glimpse of it, is about a 1-inch diameter marble. Smooth glass. Inside it is a red and blue swirling in mixtures of purple, what looks like a thunderstorm captured within the glass. And then she walks forth and stands near Gwendolyn and Kiara, but addresses all of you.
You ought to have even the least bit of hope in what you are about to do. I believe I can help. This has been in my family for so long I've almost forgotten what it was even for. Then I heard what you were planning to do.
She turns and looks at Gwendolyn.
Your grey bones, oh Sarex, the skin and the jaws are so loose they can't seem to contain their secrets. Should be careful.
And she pulls out almost looks like another dirty handkerchief, but it's actually a fragment of a piece of parchment.
This will only last for as long as it lasts. So you should waste no more time, for I sense that your time is limited.
As she, without any further question or provocation, she begins reading off the piece of paper. And does anybody here have, I think Winfield is the only one with any spellcasting ability. Oh wait,
Chester does too.
That's right, Chester. Well, actually, you guys have kind of a tie to arcane and imminence. Does anybody speak primordial?
So I speak Titan speak.
Perfect. Then you understand the words that this old woman, as she begins to sort of, almost like a chant. And she begins this sort of ritualistic chanting, but there are words buried within it. And it is mostly a primordial language, but with elements of Titan speak in it. And the words, you don't catch so much the words as their meanings that speak of, it's almost as if she's singing a song of deception and betrayal through false appearance. And mechanically, she is casting from a scroll the spell Seeming upon the four of you. And as this song completes, the four of you find that you all look like Marrow Legionnaires, without any flaw in your disguise. Even little Tawny appears to be a full height Marrow Legionnaire. When she finishes this song, and she sort of collapses into you, Chesser, leaning heavily against you. And you would almost question how this could be possible, but she seems to have aged even more in the reading of this spell. This came at a great cost to her. She looks around at the four of you and she says, "You are perhaps our only hope
in what has become otherwise endless bleak.
Someone get her. Can we get somebody in here for her, please?
Kiara summons a couple of her soldiers to take Grandma Parvo. And they carefully lead her out of this chamber. Now, what I would like to do, I know we got a little bit of a late start, but we're about to we're going to transition into what should end up taking most of the rest of the session. So I would like each of you to think of, in addition to the spell that's cast, and you all have your bats, I want you to think about any other special preparations you would make, knowing where you're heading into. We're going to take a brief 10-minute break, and when we come back, we are going to pick up with you narratively describing, each of you, just sort of round-robin story-wise, you are going to narratively describe how Kiara and Gwendolyn's troops caused the distraction, how they kicked the hornet's nest, so to speak, and how it is that you are finally able to find that gap that allows you to blend in and get inside the Ardent Scar. So with that, we are going to take a 10-minute break. I would invite you to, if you're hanging out in the chat, stick around, because I've got a brand new promo reel that's going to run when we start this in just a moment. So stick around. We will be back in exactly 10 minutes. Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is The Intermission. Mini Terrain Domain, or MTD, is a channel dedicated to the love of and participation in the world of tabletop role-playing games. Whether we're designing encounters or miniature terrain, building worlds or dice towers, or just playing games, everything we do here is because we love this amazing hobby. That is why the mission statement of Mini Terrain Domain is simply imagine, build, play. If you like to watch live play or actual play D&D games, you can do so at twitch.tv/Mini Terrain Domain 3 days a week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. On Sundays, you can join us for Cult of Personality, a long-running campaign set in the Tomb of Annihilation adventure setting. On Mondays, you can join us for All That Glitters, a Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign guaranteed to be epic proportions. And every Thursday night, you can join us for Dawnbringers, the Forge of Fury. This is a series of mini campaigns going across the gamut of several well-known modules. Season 1, which is available on youtube.com/Mini Terrain Domain, took place in the Sunless Citadel, and Season 2 is currently taking place in the Forge of Fury. If you can't join us in the chat for our live shows, that's okay. You can usually catch the roleplay, or rather the replay, on YouTube just 2 days later. If you're a fan of what we do here and you'd like to support what we do, there are a variety of ways you can do this. First, simply follow the Twitch channel or hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Next, make sure you follow all of the participants of each game or show on their various social media platforms. To do this, if you're watching live with us on Twitch, you can simply type an exclamation point and that person's name into the Twitch chat, or on YouTube, you can look down below the information bar and all of their links can be found there. Finally, if you would like to provide monetary support, which flows right back into the production of the channel so we can continue making great content, you can join the growing list of patrons on Patreon. Additionally, you can also use Ko-Fi or coffee to buy a coffee or two. I like coffee. But the absolute best way to support the channel is to follow and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube and join us in the chat. If you have an Amazon Prime account and you link it to your Twitch account, you can subscribe one channel per month absolutely free. No matter what you decide to do, we are just happy to have you here. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more great content in just a few moments. Remember, metadata!
Hi everyone, I'm V and I have the YouTube channel, The Crafting Muse. Please be sure to go over there and check it out if you too would like to learn how to make some tabletop terrain, paint miniatures, as well as some game accessories. I'm always happy to have new subscribers over there.
Learn the ways of the Game Master, the Dungeon Master, and delve into the minds of the players. If you're looking for adventure, excitement, thrills, and a dice-rolling good time, grab the modules each month and play the campaign with your gaming group with quest givers DM Scotty and DMG. They're taking you on an epic journey through the role-playing experience every Friday. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
And we really liked the idea of creating adventures together, so we thought that'd be a lot of fun to share with you guys.
I didn't think this kind of stuff would come out of my brain. We are quest givers, and I'll see you in the next video.
Adventure Mixtape, a music and adventure anthology, is a collection of 4 adventures for the 5th edition of the world's most popular role-playing game. The adventures are setting neutral and meant to be seamlessly dropped into any world that has a large seaside city and a jungle environment. With a bit of adaptation, the environments could be changed to suit any group. In Treaty of the Tiger King by Kelsey Dion of the Arcane Library, a distant king arrives at the city to negotiate the peaceful end of a war, but the mercenary guild has other insidious plans for him. Will the players be able to thwart assassination attempts against King Rami and help him negotiate circles of social intrigue in order to finally end the war? In Madness of the Majestic Menagerie by Ken Brees of Burling's Beard, the famous Majestic Menagerie draws hordes of visitors to the metropolis and cultural hub known since time immemorial as Splendor by the Sea. But now the gates of the famous zoo have been shut, and the grand opening of the new section has been jeopardized by a spate of mysterious accidents and, it's whispered, grievous injuries due to uncontrollable creatures. Mr. Majestic seeks to hire investigators and troubleshooters who can keep a low profile to iron out any problems before the impending grand opening becomes a complete disaster. Do you have what it takes to uncover what's driving the madness that's befallen the Majestic Menagerie? In The Infernal Collection by Sharang Biswas, when an influential fashion designer is found dead days before a major fashion show, heroes are called in to solve the mystery, prevent any further destruction, and help the fashion house prepare for the show. Gorillas in Their Midst by Jacob W. Norman of Mini Terrain Domain is a pulp action adventure wrought with perilous challenges and high possibility of death. But what is adventure without danger? Of course, there is the lure of vast piles of unclaimed treasure and the accompanying fame that await those intrepid adventurers who would defy the odds and plunge into the heart of darkness. In this adventure, the characters will face raging river rapids, wicked waterfalls, poisonous plants, venomous vines, sinking sands, treacherous traps, and the vicious jungle demon itself, Awakane Gori. Grab your satchels, fedoras, and bullwhips. Adventure awaits. The Adventure Mixtape also comes with 4 original songs inspired by and written for the heroic adventures herein. This collection of music and story is something unique. We had no better word for it than mixtape. If you ever received a cassette, CD, or digital playlist curated to take you on a memorable journey, then you'll recognize what you find inside this volume. Also included in the Adventure Mixtape, courtesy of Kelsey Dion of the Arcane Library, are exclusive combat cards. Special cards that contain all of the items, monsters, and spellcasters found within these adventures to make running your adventure all the more easier. Adventure Mixtape, a music and adventure anthology, is available exclusively on drivethrurpg.com.
Cryfall, once home to the most wondrous kingdom the world had ever known, blasted to nothing in just a fortnight. It is here that the fiends of hell walk among us. It is here where all things die. Welcome to Cryforth. Demon invaders roam the landscape and have conquered all. The world is a ravaged and wrathful wasteland, where the old world lies buried beneath the blood and sand with its gods and its secrets. Water is fought over with blood and steel. Compatible with the 5th edition of the world's oldest fantasy role-playing game, this book contains all new character creation options, including all of the familiar classes with new aspects befitting the ravaged wastelands of Cryforth, along with new backgrounds, subclasses, spells, feats, and so much more. New races will allow you to play as the Cursed Ash Elves, the Forsaken Humans, the Primordial Incarnate, the Proud Orcs, the Reptilian Suri, or the Infernal-Blooded Tieflings. New game mechanics such as blood, grit, and effort give your games an intense focus on lethality and survival. Numerous role tables full of ideas to help bring your games to life. Featuring incredible thematic art by Brandish Gilhelm of Runehammer Games, as well as Lloyd Collins. The people of Cryforth are not heroes. In Cryforth, it is courage just to survive. Will you rise to face the tide of demons, or will you succumb to the hostile elements? Available now on DriveThruRPG.com.
And we're back. While we were on the break, I killed everybody. The entire party has been wiped out. Good night, everybody. Thanks for playing. Playtest successful! All right. As I said, you guys all have been affected by the seeming spell. You all look like marrow. You don't know how long you have. You suspect you only have a couple hours at most. You need to mount your bats and prepare for your infiltration. I'm going to roll a die, and we're going to determine who amongst you is going to start the narrative. And then the next person will pick up. And you choose who follows after I choose the first person. As you narrate how Kiara Jin and Gwendolyn Greybone's forces go about kicking the hornet's nest and allowing you all to infiltrate. So for the next few minutes, you all have narrative control, starting with... as I can pick up a D4. Starting with Aegis.
The wind whistles through Aegis's armor, and there's nothing inside except ancient Titan parts. And the bats naturally fly in a formation as we begin to escape. And so, Jake, how much narrative control do we have over the distraction that they're going to make? Pretty much just kind of anything, write our own checks, make it cool?
100% narrative control.
Okay. So as we fly off on these bats, fodder marches forth. People who are giving their undead lives for this cause. This is not cause a distraction. This is, we have to make sure they succeed. And so as these Sarek grip trinkets and kiss their wives and children goodbye. They understand that this is a one-way ride. And so what they do is they gather and begin a spectacle in which the most talented Sarek bards begin to stage this play, this elaborate in-public play. Now, Caius Vekus is very commonly known, no matter what you believe about him, he is proud and he is quick to anger. If anyone would try to come against his good name as far as making fun of him or teasing him. And so this Sarek is dressed like Caius Vekus, but garrulously, just absolutely farcically. And these other Sarek are dressed like Marrow, and they're doing a Keystone Cops. And they start to sort of parade in front of other Marrow and sort of working their way, and with a team of Sarek behind them cheering and shouting. And the ringleader is saying, "Oh, I'm Caius Vekus. Look at my hideous scar." And he has this red paint smeared across his face. And he's got these Marrow commanders who are just slovenly, sort of parading and pretending to be drunk. And this begins to catch the attention of the Marrow. And for two reasons, they're upset. One, obviously, they're being made fun of. And so the peacekeepers begin to just sort of, they put away their clubs and start pulling out swords. But they also know that if Caius Vekus even catches wind of this, or any of the Obsidian Dirk, they will be punished for letting this happen. And so what begins as this sort of like thing happening in the street slowly starts to become a mob, which slowly starts to become a riot.
Excellent. Who will take up? Who do you appoint to continue the narrative? It's Tim frantically looks for a way to randomly determine.
No. What happened was that I clicked and my Zoom window like disappeared. It was not in the bar. I was just like, where did it go? So I had to hit Alt Tab and bring it back. But now I'm going to frantically choose. Okay, so that's actually Connor.
And so Winfield is noticing this riot emerging from the streets as all this war kind of starts to break out, this big brawl, and he's taking advantage of the loudness and the lights, for he knows that anything loud and light will obscure them in the skies. As we take these bats, he takes a sprig of mistletoe and spruce, dried up and long, forage from some distant land in Dragongrin, and he crumbles it in his hand, forming a dust, and lights that dust on fire. And from the smoke, we are obscured entirely, in all shape and ways and forms, as Winfield is obscuring us through the ranger magics he has with Pass Without Trace. So even if they were to notice anything in the sky, it would pale in comparison to what's going on down in the streets, and no one would even get a second glance.
Who do you appoint?
Chester next.
So we have made our ascent via the back of Dire Cave Bat, and the riot is beginning in the streets, and the actual rebels, the soldiers, the people mildly trained or associated with Lady Greybone, they begin to actually take action to really incite the trouble. In a scene very similar to Helm's Deep, you see rebels kind of carrying this large cylindrical item, there is a almost shimmer of like gas fumes coming off of it. The contents very well being some sort of arcane or alchemical reaction taking place as they quickly move into position. And I almost imagine some marrow getting wind of this and being attacked by 8 to 10 people apiece just to bring them down, as they are much more well trained. You see a Seric man. A lot of his left arm is either scarred or like horribly like destroyed to where you can see bone or like ripped sinew. This is like a lame arm kind of tucked up against his body, but in his right hand you see this this torch wrapped all the way to the hand in like a burlap, and it's dripping. And as the marrow are kind of coming in from the sides, you see this man light it on fire, and it engulfs him, his whole self, and he just charges into this tunnel, some sort of sewage or water main. And as the camera pans back, the marrow start to flood in after him, but you see a moment of hesitation as they all turn to run away. And in a moment without sound to anyone in the immediate vicinity, just ringing as light emerges from this tunnel and separates the stone of this tunnel. And maybe whatever is kind of resting on top of it, a building, some sort of water treatment or garrison-esque pavilion, it kind of crumbles in on itself, and you see maybe pressure start to build up and water spewing from the cracks. And this has awoken the evil that resides inside the Ardent Scar. This is the full invasion of the army.
The implosion snaps Tawny out of his daydream. He is remembering just being back where they took off from before they left, kneeling next to Tobias, his Silverwise hound, and saying, "Go now. It's not safe for you." And Tobias wouldn't leave. It took 3 or 4 tries, and then finally Tobias trots away, and Tawny looks to the earth below, trying to get a glimpse of the dog, and sees nothing. And then boom! Tawny is jolted back into reality, and he sees that there are these spires. One in particular that's kind of that he knows is used for like housing bats, and also for like maybe the primary barracks of this outer perimeter. And so he kind of points there, and a lot of bats begin swooping down at it and actually landing on the outside of the spire. And he lands right next to an actual marrow, and he feels these chills, this terror. What if he notices me? And he looks to the marrow and he says, "You fool, get over there. Stop that." And points down to the riot, points to the destruction. And the marrow kind of nods, and she and her squad begin running down these steps towards the area, and they all kind of scatter, and we kind of have this spire more or less to ourselves. And we kind of begin maybe docking our bats, so to speak, as I imagine they like ravel around the spire with their huge wings like gargoyles and just kind of crawl up it to get to these parapets where we can like jump off and enter into the tower.
And as you land your bats and the last of this squadron takes off, leaving the 4 of you, your bats, you land in an area where it's sort of open, and the bats begin scrambling up for the first time in months back at their roost, seeming to potentially sever any connections you've had with them. and leaving you without your bats. The four of you descend the tower. You pass a few marrow running up, a couple that are manning areas along the tower, but most of the city's defenses are being put into, everybody's moving into their alert status. You begin moving through the area inside the Ardent Scar. As you emerge from the tower, you see a right and proper city, but completely devoid of people. Despite the localized damage from this Sarek suicide bombing run, you're seeing signs of destruction along these streets. And you're finding it difficult to navigate other than on main pathways that are leading you towards the central area and towards a large tower that is believed to be one of the primary spires of Caius Vecus's Ashen Palace. And as you're moving through the streets, I would like each of you to make an insight check.
I got an insight of 23.
Sitting at a solid 9.
13.
Also 13.
Winfield. Moving through these areas, you sort of come out into a wide open, almost like town square area that a couple 100 yards in front of you lies this ashen spire towering hundreds of feet up. And you realize what's been bothering you since you came into the city. The destruction you were seeing, the impassable streets, everything seemed intentional. And you realize you were being funneled, you were being guided, you were being directed. As if someone knew to expect you. And as you enter this open courtyard, you see at the base of the tower, on two balconies about 30 feet up, there are two marrow figures, stitchers. About 150 feet up, clinging to the side of the Ashen Spire, is a massive golden bat hanging from a balcony. And there stands a man on this balcony. And he speaks to you in a voice that is barely above a normal speaking voice, but it reverberates and carries throughout this courtyard. I wanted to see what kind of fools thought that any machinations would be outside of my ability to discern. What sort of idiots would stride into the Ardent Scar, thinking to take advantage of any perceived weakness? Tell me now who you are.
We are but few of many. We need not names, for we will not have them in death.
One of the marrow stitchers on the tower makes a gesture. in your direction. And just like that, your seeming dissolves away. The magic dispelled. At least now I can see your true forms. 4 of you. Hundreds and thousands out there are dying because of the 4 of you, of some delusions of grandeur. He takes a step forward. He steps off of the balcony. And he drops like a stone. Boom! He lands in the courtyard. He does not crouch. He does not flex his knees. He lands in the courtyard as if he just stepped off of a curb. He looks to his sides. And 2 massive wolves emerge from the shadows, standing on either side of him. Surely, this is some kind of test. You are putting me to the test, or you are testing yourselves, or you have truly lost hope. If you have come here today to die, then far be it from me to get in your way. Emotions, or rather, where he was standing with the wolves on either side of him, almost caressing them. The wolves, their haunches sort of, or their hackles raise, and they begin. Caius Vecus leans forward, places his hands out, and drops to all 4s. And before your eyes, there is not a man, but a 3rd giant wolf. And the 3 wolves begin advancing towards you. And I'd like to have you all roll for initiative.
Super cool.
Let's see. Vecus.
It was like, 19-9. It rolled that one last time.
Mine wasn't so bad, but it was pretty close.
So that's a 13 total for me.
Hold on,
Mine is abysmal if you take into account my initiative bonus here.
1 second. So you got what'd you get, Tim?
13.
Barker?
15.
And Winfield?
22.
And Chesser?
13.
What's your dex, Chesser?
You're muted.
+1.
And what's
Score
your
12.
dex, Aegis?
My dex is just the straight mod, or
Yeah, just your mod.
+2.
All right. So here is the order. It is going to be Winfield first, followed by Caius and the Wolves. Sounds like a rad underground ska band. I don't know why I said ska. And then it's going to be Tawny, followed by Aegis, followed by Chesser. All right. What are you going to do, Winfield, as these 3 massive wolves are charging towards you?
He steps out from this shadowy awning that he's emerged from, stepping into the courtyard. He's got his bow in his hand, and as he's fiddling with the bowstring and knocking arrows and getting them ready, he says, "Hope is like a flame. You may put it out, but a single spark can relight it to be a great flame larger than it was before. And a flame passes on, brighter and brighter. We are those sparks. And you're the kindling." And he's going to, as he's pacing forward, just knock these arrows upon arrows and just lob them, volleying style at the wolves. He's aiming for the middle one, or the one that he knew was Caius formerly. But in their advance, they may have been mixed up a little bit. But that's his aiming. So he's going to use his bonus action to cast Hail of Thorns, or Hail of Bones, as it was last session. As he launches the arrow, it splinters into bone shards. So I'm going to make an attack roll against him. This is going to be a 26 to hit.
That will hit.
Nice. And let's see what Hail of Thorns does, because I always forget. I'm going to do regular bow damage. Oh yeah, so he needs to make a dex save along with anything else within 5 feet of him against a DC 14. And then following this longbow attack will be 2 more longbow attacks.
All right, so I'm sorry, what's the dex?
DC 14 dex save.
Is a fail.
Ooh. And do I catch any of the other wolves in this?
Yes.
Nice. So they have to make dex saves as well against DC 14.
They all fail.
Okay. So the Hail of Thorns is going to do 8 points of piercing damage to each of them. Then my bow is going to do 8 points of piercing, and then 8 points of... Oh, no, sorry, you say 16 points of piercing for the first shot. That's overall 24.
Okay.
24, and then 8 for the wolves. And then 2 more arrows get lobbed. Thankfully, my Dread Ambusher gives me a bonus first round attack. So I get 3 here. So it's a 27 and a 24.
Hit.
Okay, this is going to do a total of 19 piercing between the two.
All right.
And then he'll hold his ground while motioning the others to, "Let's go!" As he draws more arrows for the next volley.
The 3 wolves, rapidly advancing, are going to attack your group. One of them is going right for you, Winfield. That is going to be a... Oh, wait. They get advantage.
Oh, fun.
That doesn't matter. Second roll was a 1.
Trying to beat a 7.
So, the first wolf gets a 14 to hit.
Yep, it's going to miss.
Second wolf is a 12 to hit.
That is also a miss.
The third wolf doesn't charge forward quite like the other 2. And I'm going to leave it up to the other 3 of you. Who would be the closest to Winfield? Chesser? All right. Chesser and Winfield, I need you to make a dexterity saving throw.
I got a 24 on that dex save.
Got a 17 total.
All right, so you're only going to take half damage as this wolf howls, opens its mouth and howls, expelling cold breath. So that is 15 points, rounded down to 8 points of cold damage to each of you.
Cool.
And let me just check. Okay. That's going to be Tawny.
Tawny is, I imagine that the outskirts of this Fortress of Ash is kind of like have these little makeshift palisades that spurt out of the ground. It's not like wooden spikes that they make, but it's like the earth itself molds upward into these spikes. And so Tawny is going to raise his short bow, knock an arrow, and release it at the wolf that he perceives as Caius Vecus. I believe that's the third one.
All right.
All right, you know what? It rolled off the table. I should probably use my dice tower. Okay. That sucked. So 9 total. Don't even bother. I am going to use my cunning action to kind of, after whiffing with this arrow, dive behind one of these palisades and use that cunning action to hide. Maybe roll stealth or something. I don't know if you'd require that, but basically try to draw the attention away from me, get into a place where I can't actually be seen by these things.
You're sort of in an open courtyard, so you pretty much only have your allies to attempt to hide behind.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I don't do that. Then I will pull back a little bit,
Okay.
so I can knock another arrow.
Aegis.
So seeing all this unfold, I think Aegis doesn't quite have the propensity for fear. So, and it's not bravery either. It's inexperience or inability to feel. So I think I would charge. And I would charge the one that I thought was Vecus. So how far away am I roughly?
Within, say, 20 feet.
Okay, yeah. So I would go ahead and I would charge in, and I'm going to use, I have a glaive, so I'm going to stay at reach with using the 10-foot reach and just okay, now, if you remember, I have quite an attack here going. So I have extra attack where I can attack twice whenever I take the attack action. So my first roll, 17 on the die. So 25.
Absolutely a hit.
Okay. Second roll, 23.
Yep.
Third one is a crit fail. And the final one is an 11, 17. And the final one is a 17.
Yep.
Okay, so
I think the crit's the only one that didn't hit.
Awesome. So that is 3. Ugh, rolling some ones here. Okay, so that's only, actually I rolled 4 times, but I only should have rolled 3 times. So, man, that's kind of a bummer. It's only 17 damage.
Okay.
And that's my turn.
And Chesser.
My go in initiative.
Yep.
Chesser kind of shakes off some of the cold his muscles stiffening from intense low temperatures, and seeing Winfield knock another arrow and Aegis move in for the kill, or the attempt at least. I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna whirling dervish my way as much as to the center of attention as I possibly can to try and aid Aegis in his next check of any kind. And that is my turn.
All right. On the balconies in the background, one of the Stitchers makes some motions and mutters some words. You're not entirely sure what they are doing. So, the wolves break off. That center wolf that Aegis, everybody seemed to have been focusing on, just stops. It no longer in a vicious attack stance. And it deliberately backs away. But in a way that does not provoke opportunity attacks. As it just sort of dodges out of your way, taking sort of low down steps. And it's almost as if you blink and there's no wolf there. But Vekas himself, back in the form of a man. Interesting. Very interesting. I now have a sense. Your intent. And with a rapid flourish, he is going to advance on... He's going to advance on Aegis as he draws his longsword. He is going to attack you. And his first attack is going to be terrible. That's a 13.
All right.
As he sort of swings the sword, but almost does like a feint and pulls back. He takes his second attack. This one is going to be a 22 to hit.
Hits. Absolutely hits.
And as he hits you, all right, so first I'm going to roll the damage on that. As that is going to be 15 points of slashing damage. And right thing? Yeah. That's going to be 15 points of slashing damage, but as it hits you, there's something else behind it as you hear the sizzling of flame. I need you to make a Constitution saving throw.
Ooh. Ooh. It's a 19.
That's a success. Yeah, that is a success. So you see as fire sort of crackles out from the sword as it hits you, but it doesn't take hold of you. And that is actually going to be his turn. Oh, Forgot to do something. That's fine. All right, so we are back at the top of the order. It is Winfield.
So you said that the wolves are gone, and then
Nope. Only one of them.
so there's one wolf still harrying me.
There's still 2 wolves there. There were 3 total.
Oh, gotcha. He turned back into yeah. So so he's gonna Winfield cast a quick utterance of his ranger magics as he basically his whole form turns to dust just for a brief moment as he becomes very wraith-like. I'm casting Zephyr Strike, and now my movement increases by 30 feet, and I do not provoke attacks of opportunity.
What level
My
is that
bonus
spell?
action. The first level spell.
What does it do?
Concentration up to a minute. I move like the wind until the spell ends. My movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. And then I'm going to be doing the next paragraph effect. So I'm going to get a walking speed increase of 30 feet as I make my attack.
Okay.
So I'm going to basically vanish and to kind of just like move swiftly about 60 feet away from these wolves. And then use the Zephyr Strike attack on Vekis himself. So I got a 24 to hit for the first attack, and then a 22 for the second attack.
Those will hit.
All right. So it's going to be 13 plus 12 is 25 piercing and 7 force from the Zephyr Strike.
Okay. You strike into him, and he seems to almost give an appreciative nod as you strike in at him. And if that is the end of your turn, it is.
It is.
And are you you're still standing engaged with him?
I am 60 feet away from both the wolves and Vekis. Like I tried to just like go as far away as possible.
Oh, so that was an effect that you hit him with as you moved? Or did
yeah,
you...
like as I moved, I can make a shot.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. Ishtivekis. You, my friend, need to make a wisdom saving throw.
Whomst?
Which friend?
Which friend?
Sorry, Winfield.
Winfield making wisdom save. All right.
Yep.
I see how it is.
I'm going to use my mortal resolve, my human heritage heritage ability, to re-roll this saving throw because it was not a very big number. That is a much bigger number. 14 plus 6 is a total of 20.
You feel for a moment that you are you're struggling, almost like something is grasping at you, and then you break free from it. As you are not held by a spell. All right, I guess that is going to take us to Tawny.
Let me really quick paint a picture of the surrounding area with you, just so I get a grasp of what we're looking at. So we are in an open courtyard. Behind Vekis and the wolf is the fortress, correct?
Yeah, it's about 50 feet behind them.
Okay. And is there a marrow standing up there?
There are 2 marrow stitchers on 2 balconies about 30 feet up.
Oh, okay. All right. I think that Tawny is afraid of maybe accidentally firing on one of his companions here. He's going to look up at those Stitchers, and maybe one of them he recognizes, one that chased him off the last time he was here. He's going to kind of roll to the side. He knocks an arrow, fires it up towards the Stitchers, drops the D20 behind the desk, picks up another D20, and gets a total of 24 to hit.
Absolutely a hit.
It's not sneak attack, I guess. So I'll just this. That would be a total of 9 points of damage. And
ooh, hold on.
Oh.
I need to make a concentration check. That was 9 points of damage.
9 points.
All right, makes the concentration check.
Points. Damn it.
All right.
And then Tawny is going to begin running kind of around the battle towards the tower. He probably can't reach it this turn, but might be able to start next turn by reaching it.
Okay. Sounds good. Moving like the wind. Suddenly, Caius Vecus is standing right beside you, Chesser. Aegis, it is your turn.
Where I was, and I know he just teleported essentially. How close is?
He didn't really teleport. He just moved very quickly.
Gotcha. So, is he still within reach of me, either if I move or from where I am with my 10-foot reach?
You'd have to move towards him. But yeah.
Okay, I do so. Staying as far away as I can, but still in reach, in that 10-foot reach. And so...
You do have advantage from my help action, by the way.
Amazing. So with my glaive, I'm purposefully going to try to stab the large scar that has that opening in his mouth right there, that sort of triangular piece of puzzle flesh that's just removed. I'm going to try to stab him in his mouth and in his teeth. And I clomp towards him, just sort of. And if I had a thought in my head, it would probably be repeating something that Tawny told me. And so, Tawny, what you be the voice in my head. What did you tell me that I'm remembering in this battle?
I think it would have to be. This might be boring, but I think it would have to be. If you find yourself in a fair fight, poor planning.
That's amazing. And so, and that is exactly why I step up, because I see myself, this is not fair. The help action. I'm like, yes, unfair. Okay, so that's a 20 on the die. That is another 20. I can't use these dice. I feel like I'm cheating. These are the pink dice I bought in Seattle for my daughter.
Why on earth would you not use them? You just rolled 2 20s on an advantage.
Oh my God.
And just those puppies look translucent. I don't think those can be weighted.
And those look like the Friendship and Magic My Little Pony dice.
They are. They were for my 4-year-old daughter.
Because I have a set of those.
I love it. Well, that's however you want to play that.
Well, here is how critical hits work on MTD. That is automatic max damage. Then roll your damage dice one more time. So whatever damage you would roll plus modifiers, max it out, then roll your damage dice and add to that number.
Okay. There's just so this is meta, but because he's undead, I was wondering if he was immune to critical hits. Or how you play that. That's not really a formal rule unless it says it specifically, but some GMs play that.
I have never heard that.
Okay.
I've never heard of undead being
I'm
immune
in
to
as well.
critical hits. That sounds like some Connor
Mm.
Davies BS.
Yes, yeah. As a Sarek, I like that idea.
You're like, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. I love this glaive because it's a D10 plus 4. So immediately I get 10, and then I roll again, correct? And then whatever that is, add it together and then double it. So
No, you're not doubling anything.
Oh, gotcha. So it's max plus whatever.
It's whatever your max damage is, then just roll your dice one more time and add those to your max damage.
Killer. So it's 18. That's total all up 26.
And you were aiming for the scar in the face.
I was. That open cheek. I'm trying to take his tooth.
You notice something. As your glaive pierces into Caius Vecus's face, and the flesh begins to rip away, and you feel the resistance of bone and teeth breaking. The illusion of Caius Vecus melts away, and pierced on the end of your glaive is Vansum Harsh, the Merrill commander that you fought in the Black Rail.
Okay, that's fine.
As you pull your glaive back, her face is split all the way up the side of her head. She has no last words as she collapses to the ground and blood spills. From high up on the balcony in the Ashen Spire, you hear "And now I have the measure of you." As Caius Vecus does not just step off the balcony, he just explodes into, fitting with this image below me, a murder of rock crows, and descending in a maelstrom of feathers to the ground before you, as Caius Vecus stands uninjured, unharmed, and slowly draws his longsword. "Now we will fight to your death." And Chesser, I believe it is your turn. Unless you had more you can do there, Aegis. I think that was actually only one attack.
It was. So I do have a second attack, and if you'll allow it narratively, I would probably strike out. I don't know how far away he is, but I would strike out to anything nearby. I no longer have a move, but would I be able to reach him or no?
Unfortunately, Caius Vecus is a very tactical thinker, as he has already exemplified to you. And he has placed himself about 30 feet away from you.
Of course he has. So if there's anything around that I can attack, I don't know if there are any wolves still alive, or if those were all illusions as well, or if that was,
As you look around, there are no wolves.
All right. Well, then I step on top of this enemy that bested us once, and you hear a crunch as the weight of the tome heart just as I just step over her narratively. I don't actually move, but with one foot on top of her, I steady myself on my glaive.
All right, Chesser.
So he's about 30 feet from Aegis and I. Aegis. Chester, seeing the downed commander, he turns his head, his mail obscuring parts of his vision as they kind of clatter up and then settle back down into place. Chester's not completely negligent to the idea of tactics, and I charge forward and make 2 attacks.
Unrelated, but still related. I love, Baron, the way that you talk in your character's voice while you're doing stuff. It is so awesome. What a cool touch.
If I don't, I'll like start talking as myself and narrating my character as Chester, and then it just kind of ruins the whole thing for me. So my first attack with the battle axe is a total of 25, which I hope hits.
That will hit.
And then my secondary attack with my, so actually I don't know if I clarified this with you the last time. Extra, so I have extra attack as well. Would that apply to my battle axe as well, or is my offhand my bonus action? I guess I don't know that.
You can use your attack for whichever. I mean,
okay. Well, then for the sake of flavor, I'm gonna attack, bonus action attack, and then attack again as like a hack and slash. But metally, I am attacking twice with my battle axe. So the second one is a 19 modified.
That will also hit.
Okay, so these are both battle axe attacks. Not so hot in damage. We got a 9 and an 8, so a total of 17. And then my bonus action longsword attack is a 22 total.
Hit
for 7 damage. So total of 24 damage.
Yep, got it.
And I'm right in this guy's fucking face.
Oops.
One of us will die here, Caius. And I've already died once.
I will see to it that you spend the rest of eternity dying. Winfield, is actually your turn.
He's gonna look up to the marrow that are on the balconies. What does he notice them doing, if anything?
They seem to be watching very closely. Every once in a while, you see. In fact, just before or just after Chesser went, one of them cast a spell.
I think that Winfield's a bit too fueled by revenge, able to really make tactical use of the scenario. And he'll just sling more arrows at Caius. That's 2 shots. That's going to be a 15 for the first one and a 22 for the second.
Second one hits.
That's going to be 12 points of piercing. But he's going to advance with his movement 30 feet towards the Caius. Just as he's making shots, just like literally moving towards him. So I should be somewhere between 20 feet away from them.
Okay.
At the end of this.
Caius is, having just said, I will see that you spend the rest of eternity dying, grasps his longsword in 2 hands. That is a natural 20 on the die.
Didn't we say that undead are immune to critical hits?
No,
Wasn't that
we did
something
not.
that happened to you?
And because Caius Vecus is holding his longsword with 2 hands,
It's a Vorpal longsword.
he does so the initial max damage is going to be 15 plus 32 is 47 points of damage, and then I have to roll. What did I say? 47? 57, and then 1, 2.
All my D8s.
So that was 57 and 67, 75, 80, 86 points of damage as he drives this longsword to the hilt inside you, Chesser.
Yeah, I'm down.
As you fall to the ground, Caius Vecus withdraws his longsword while looking over at Winfield approaching him. He drives the longsword down into where your heart would be, which is an automatic critical hit because you're down, and forces you to fail 2 death saving throws. And that will be Caius Vecus' turn.
That is the realest thing he would have done, Jake.
Fucking thank God that's the end of his turn.
I have always been afraid to do that as a DM, but on a critical hit and Caius Vecus, yeah, it's what he would do. Also, as he turns to you, Winfield, you see the gashes and the slashes in his body from Chesser begin healing themselves. And it is... Tawny, it is your turn. You know what?
You're dead too. No.
Yeah, you know what?
You know what? Screw it. You're all dead. Chesser, do you have any damage resistances? Because I didn't think about that with the Sarek. I didn't know if you guys had resistance to necrotic
It's one
damage.
of our culture things that we could have picked.
Okay.
Yeah,
picked it.
I just thought about that because really 32 plus like a whole bunch of that damage, most of that damage was necrotic damage.
I mean, the only I don't have resistance.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that. All right, Tawny.
I would have been all right had you not critical hit me, but beggars don't get to be
Well,
choosers.
you think you would have been all right.
Tawny's going to look to Winfield and scream, "Take the damage resistance ability for the sake of the playtest." And then he's going to turn back to the tower. I'm kind of like having this, I was going to climb. You know what? Tawny's going to do exactly what Tawny was doing in the first place. He's going to run up to the tower and he's going to begin climbing up using his second story capabilities. He's got
All right.
second story work. And he's just going to try to work up towards one of the Stitchers, hoping that their focus and concentration on whatever they're doing will deny them the ability of really noticing him because of his size, maybe, and he's kind of hugging the wall. And when he gets up there, which might be next turn, I don't really know, because I'm 20 feet away. I get there, climb 10. I'll have to use a second move to get up there.
You would just get to the balcony on this turn. Like,
okay,
you're
cool.
up, you're climbing, and you're at that point where you're like, okay, they're there. And you actually notice that the Marrow Stitcher is very intently watching Caius Vecus and is like going through a litany of spells, like being prepared to cast any given spell at any moment. So yeah, you would have to use a double action to...
Okay, well, I don't want to use a double act. Wait, I would need to use a double action.
As a rogue, do you have the bonus action dash, all that stuff?
I do, but I was actually thinking if I get up to the balcony, I could next turn try to like pull this person off or whatever, and this turn Tobias returns and out of nowhere strikes at Caius Vecus.
I'll allow that just because.
And I want to see if you'll kill a beautiful little pup.
I feel like this is as much a test of me as it is of Caius Vecus.
It's going to be a vampire dog.
You are a smart man there.
The dog lunges, but Caius grabs it. Sinks the fangs.
Yep. Okay. I'm here. 20. Okay, so I rolled low. I really want to use one of those super sweet dice you got there to re-roll this.
All right, so that's going to be a domain die.
Domain die, and I'm going to waste it on the hound. Sorry, guys. Not sorry, guys. Okay, that's better.
Better get a crit off of it, I swear.
Nah. Not unless we're playing the old 16s or crits trick or rule. So total of 20.
That is going to hit.
Oh, D4s. You're so fickle. 1, 2. 5 points of damage. Piercing damage. Rawr, rawr, rawr. I'll keep going if you want me to. Rawr, rawr. Just like
I think.
All right. I'm sorry. What was the damage?
Oh wait, hold on. What did I say? 1, 3, like 5 points.
Okay.
Yeah, 5. Because it was 2 + 1 + 2. So.
Let's see, and that was your turn. Man. So, and I'm sorry, Baron. Everybody else is too far away for him to do anything.
That's just how the game is.
Caius Vecus is going to reach down, and with one hand, he grabs Chesser by the throat. And he picks him up, and he bites into his neck. Because you are unconscious, you have no way to resist any of this. As he sucks out whatever remaining life force you have, but you are an empty husk. This counts as a critical hit. And for the first time in a long time, you get to use one of these. Chesser has been eliminated by Caius Vecus. And that was on his legendary action. So it is now... That was Tawny that went, and then... So, Aegis.
So, seeing that, I will charge him. And in a sound that's oddly almost satirical, but it was not intended to be, Aegis attempts to let out a scream, and it sounds more like someone pretending to scream, like you know, like, so it's more like this. It's like
it's like gears whirring up.
Yeah, exactly. So Aegis charges Caius Vecus, and okay, I do have 2 attacks, so I'm going to use them. No, first attack is a 2 on the die. Second attack is 19 on the die plus 7. All right, so does that hit?
Oh yeah.
All right, beauty. So that's okay. So that's a 6, 79. So that's 10 damage.
Okay.
And so those 2 attacks, I'm like, and maybe the first one, I don't even know if he moves. Maybe it just hits his armor. I'm not sure what happens to that first one, but or maybe he lets it hit him and it doesn't hurt him, which is even more terrifying.
He lets both attacks hit him. The first one doing no damage, the second one cutting a groove in his skin, and he doesn't even flinch at it.
Oof. All right, and I think after the charge and then using those two, I think that's going to be all I can do currently.
Winfield.
As a experienced undead hunter, he pulls from his bags a vial that he has procured. Within it is something that is poison even to him in his undead state. It is water that's been blessed. He grabs it, and in his hand he holds it, and he's going to charge at Caius, hoping to just get this opening, and he's going to just smash this bottle of holy water onto Caius. And he's willing to take this residual splash damage as it burns his own skin, as he just like, you know how you just smash a bottle over someone's head? He's going to do that with a thing of holy water.
All right, make a melee attack.
All right. It'd be a 20.
And that will hit.
All right. So holy water does 2d6 radiant if the thing is an undead creature or a fiend, but I'm going to assume it is.
Yes. Fair assumption.
All right. So holy water, 11 radiant damage. I don't know if the
You actually
impact of the
catch
glass
a bit of a... And you notice Winfield now, as you are right up in his face, as he winces and sort of growls, you notice that Caius Vecchus is missing one of his fangs. Aren't you the one that has a certain necklace?
I do. I very much do.
And he definitely does not like what you just did. And it is his turn.
I have an extra, however.
Oh, okay.
And I want to, in this like moment of like us just being in such a melee, my extra attack is, as I caught him off guard with this singeing, burning holy water, to tackle him to the ground using the, I guess, shove action. Shove attack. So this will be contested athletics.
All right, let's see how this goes for you.
Come on, super strong undead creature. Okay.
That is a...
I got a 22.
That beats Caius's 17.
I smash him over the head, pile drive him down, and I look up to Aegis and just like, do it! As I notice your big log impaling device.
First, as a legendary action at the end of your turn, he is going to make an unarmed strike against you. This unarmed strike is going to be 23 to hit.
That's a hit.
And you are going to take... Oh, I only rolled one. So you can take 5 points of... No, you know what? Make me a strength check.
Oh no. Just straight up strength, or can I apply athletics to this?
Strength.
Straight up strength. I'm going to use a domain dice, please.
Sure.
Hey, there we go. So that's going to be a total of 16.
Still not enough. As you are now grappled by Caius Vecchus.
So now we're both on the ground?
Yep. And he pulls you closer. And he's actually going to, while holding his sword, this is now his regular attack action. He's going to make 2 attacks on you. He's going to hit you with the fist that has the sword in his hand for a 23 to hit.
That'll hit.
And you will take another 1 on the damage die. 5 points of bludgeoning damage. And then he's going to attempt to bite you.
Great.
Technically, you're both prone. So
I believe the advantage and disadvantage cancel.
I was going to say that
each
would
other out.
cancel out. So
Yeah.
his bite attack is going to be a 16.
That misses.
As
Thanks
he just
thank the
can't
Lord.
quite get in on you for this bite. Probably for the best for you. So then it is, but you can definitely see this close up that even the scarring from the, wait a minute. Oh, never mind.
Oh,
He does not heal. That's what I thought. Okay. Tawny.
Tawny is at the balcony and flashes back to him hanging on the black rail, the edge, and reaching up to grab the marrow and pull the marrow off and failing at it. He has some second thoughts. He decides instead, I'm going to use my cunning action I'm going to use my bonus action to use an object. He's going to reach into his pocket and pull out the handkerchief with the glass marble. And he's going to throw it against the tower as close to in between the stitchers as he possibly can, having no idea what it's going to do to him, to them, to the tower. But it seems pretty bleak after Chesser is dead and multiple people are. It just looks like we're failing at our duties, at our job, at our goal here. So he throws that object against the tower.
As the sphere slams against the tower, it's this moment of almost like an underwater explosion as it sort of goes. And as the tower explodes outward and you see part of the both balconies disintegrate, you actually see parts of the stitchers disintegrating. I need you first to make a dexterity saving throw.
Okay, I'm going to do that, and I actually do have evasion. So if I succeed on the dexterity saving throw, I take no damage instead of half. If that's the case, 11, 18 total.
You manage to hold on to what's left of this balcony, but you notice as the debris from the explosion and the now dead, obviously dead, as they start to rotate away, you see part of their face just shattered, one whole arm gone. But you notice that they go like this. And slowly begin moving backwards towards the scene of the explosion, which is now a desolation rift. And you manage to hold on to the balcony, but everything in the vicinity is now slowly and with increasing speed being drawn towards the desolation rift. Anything else?
I'll just think to myself, I really should have used this on Caius. No, it's a playtest.
Aegis.
So I think at this point, I would attempt to take advantage of the holy water that's, smashed all over him and sort of just try to peg him down as he's still wrestling Winfield, right? Trying to bite him and punch him in the face.
You have advantage on attacks against him because he's prone.
Killer. Yep. I'm all about that life. Okay. I'm going to need it. That's what we like to call a crit fail in the biz. Oh, God. Okay. So I don't think so. Does a 14 hit him?
Does not.
I rolled a 1 and then a 5. And here I was worried these dice were imbalanced. So Oh, man.
You do have 5 domain dice remaining.
You know what? And I can, I'll burn one of them for me to just re-roll this.
All right.
Okay, that's better. That's better. So 11 on the die. So that would be an 18.
Yep.
Okay. So that's 9.
All right. Chester's dead. Winfield, what are you going to do?
I'm grappling him. Do I notice the pull of that desolation rift? Is it acting upon me and Caius, or are we too far away from it?
I think you're too far away to feel the effects of it yet.
Okay. He's going to slam his fist into the ground next to him, not on Caius. And from it, you can hear the snapping of bones as thousands of bone splinters rise up from the ground. And we just get encaged by these bone splinters. I'm casting spike growth to make the 20-foot area of radius around me is going to be difficult terrain. Anybody who moves through it or enters the area takes 2d4 piercing damage per 5 feet they move. And I'm essentially just locking us in this like spike cage, knowing that like I can take it because I'm an undead creature, and like if he tries to get out of this, he'll have to, impale himself 1,000 times. And I'm just going to maintain this grapple. I'm not going to get out of it. Just going to keep kind of pivoting back and forth, pinning him. I believe it is a concentration spell though, so
you are pinning Caius Vecus, the Ash Lord of Sphere, to the ground. You're somehow managing to hold off despite the fact that he so unceremoniously killed your ally. An unknown explosion has sundered the Ashen Spire not too far away. Tawny is grappling against the side of the balcony, attempting to hold on for dear life as the dead Stitchers, the only ones who could have counterspelled your attempts to hold their Ash Lord, they are starting to move towards the rift. You feel your grip loosen on Caius Vecus as he looks at you in the eyes, Winfield. It is you I shall savor, hunting the very ends of Dragongrin. And your grip loosens more as your face fills with feathers, as Caius Vecus transforms into a murder of rot crows. And he begins to fly up into the air. Initially, he starts to fly towards the tower. And I was going to say I might have to use a legendary resistance, but I rolled a nat 20 on his dex save. So in his rot crow form, he does not get sucked into the desolation rift. But he begins to fly up as this just swirling mass of birds. High up on the tower, the golden bat for the first time peels away. Flies across, merging with the murder of rot crows that seem to sort of converge on the bat. Back into Caius Vecus's form. As he flies off towards the peaks of the Sphere Mountains, leaving you to fend for yourselves as this desolation rift, newly formed in the Ardent Scar, begins to pull you all inward. And that's where we're going to end this playtest. It's largely dictated by time, but also in the face of such adversity, I do feel like, first of all, if Caius had even allowed himself to get in this position in the first place, that there's no way he would stay in a position that would allow him to be so easily defeated. So I got to try out a few things. Definitely like that I got a crit on that two-handed longsword action.
Jake, I thought that was amazing. I feel like, and Dragongrin, and everyone has their own version of Dragongrin, but Dragongrin is not a world where you defeat evil. It's a world where you do your best to survive it. And that felt, that felt real. Like watching Chesser just get wrecked immediately. And this was a lot of fun.
As a player in DM in D&D, I hate doing that to players. And I've learned from watching other DMs, but also just knowing the nature of Dragongrin, like you said, and who Caius Vekus is. That's absolutely what Vekus would have done. He wouldn't leave you there with the possibility of rising to strike him from behind. He would finish you off. And so Tim, I know we went longer than your hard stop.
Oh, dude, no, you're good. You're good. It was too good, and I knew I was going to do this. So we're on the same page.
Definitely. So I would like to hear from you guys. Who? Let me see if I remember. Barker, I think you're the only one that only played 2 sessions. The other 3 played all 3 sessions. And knowing, there's the meta that this was a play test, so there was a lot of narrative and a little bit of hand waving. But for the most part, I stuck to everything within the rules. I was using the Stitchers to buff him, and I absolutely planned to bring Vansom Harsh back in that little bit of subterfuge. But I'd like to hear from each of you, and then just final thoughts, and then I have a couple quick notes on Caius Vekus. Barker, final thoughts.
Oh my gosh. Okay, final thought was I really liked the narrative bit. I know this is a play test, and I know that a big part of the play test is mechanics and figuring out if the numbers add up, but I really enjoyed that you gave us complete narrative agency on how this invasion, how this attack worked itself out. I also, and people didn't see this, but Tim in the chat kind of reminded Jake, like, hey man, it's your game, like whatever. I just wanted to remind you that Caius Vekus does have legendary actions. And then we realized that's not really Caius Vekus. He changes, and I was like, oh man, Jake has just got this stuff just wrapped around his finger. So I really love that. I love the Stitchers buffing. I felt that Caius Vekus was absolutely as terrifying, if not more terrifying, than I had just imagined him. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, man. I forgot it was a play test a couple of times because it felt very immersive. And I would not be surprised if at some point after A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin is released, if I shot you a message saying, hey, look, we should pick up and see what happens to Tawny gripping that balcony as it's being pulled into the desolation.
Baron, our fatality of the night. What are your final thoughts? I'm gonna go ahead and remove your little death screen so we can see you.
It's a testament to what I've become.
It's a badge earned.
Yeah. Okay. So I am downed a lot in games, but I rarely get brutalized. And ironically enough, in the first game I played, I did that to someone because they weren't taking the game seriously enough. And it was kind of like a vengeance thing. But in this, it was like, this is a Dragongrin moment. I got in the face of a big bad, and he put me the fuck down. That's justified. You said something about feeling. No, man. Literally, my character was designed by just everything I could to buff my AC. My AC sitting was a 19, and I have the shield spell. So literally the only thing you could have done was crit me. And when you said natural 20, I was like, yep, that makes sense. I don't know why I doubted it for a second. I said this before. The versatility of the character creation. I didn't make a new character for the sake of the playtest, but I have looked a bit at some of their potentials, and in hindsight, yeah, resistance probably would have been a good idea. But hindsight's 2020. I also could have used a domain die, but alas. I was murdered in Dragongrin, and all I got was this sick T-shirt. I just like to close out saying it's truly been fucking awesome to play with two members of the AbTab team, people that have come up with this book, and I certainly don't know how I got here, but I'm happy I made it. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Connor.
This has been my first foray into Dragongrin. I've only heard about it through just hearsay and kind of like imagery and just getting the vibe of it from afar, and being able to step my toes in and like, wow, you know what? I really feel like desperate rebels that have like nothing to lose, but also like nothing to gain, and just a weird, like, I guess we're fighting because there's nothing else to do. And it was really cool to feel that. Like have that like lack of hope, but like in that lack of hope, you're still like, there's what else are you going to do with your life, right? Like you have to do something meaningful. And it was cool to just throw yourself against a wall that is, the vampire lord Caius Vecus. And it was fun to just like bring him down to the dirt. Like, we're both people, if that makes any sense. We're just going to tough it out and have an actual brawl on the ground. And you're going to probably kill me, or he flies away as a flock of birds. But it was a cool moment just to like feel like even the big bads still feel mortal. Like there's no, demigods floating around this world that make things actually like impossible. It's like, no, these guys still like, they still bleed, they still take punches. And it's really cool, like this is just like all like a mortal duel going on in the world, and it's kind of really cool to feel that. The culture heritage stuff going on was actually really innovative and cool. I would consider like balancing some of the options, because there's some that are like really cool, and there's some that are like, wow, this is like a must take thing. And that kind of happened in both the heritage and the culture sections. But other than that, it was like, yeah, it was really intuitive, really intuitive system, and has a lot of cool versatility, and can actually capture a lot of ideas that we have about characters we can't normally do. Like, I want to make a dwarf that was raised by elves, and we just can't do that really in D&D 5e, but we can kind of in this new heritage culture system. Like, hey, I am part of this people, but actually I grew up here, so you got this mix match going on. And that's really cool. Really glad to see that kind of come into play in this new setting. So, hell yeah, good job, love it.
All right, Mr. Tim.
So knowing what Vecus's stat block was, when you write that kind of stuff, and all four of us really had a hand in writing it.
You really, I just want to throw this out there. Tim made Caius Vecus. Yeah, there it is.
So I did make him, and but here's the cool thing, is that we were trying to make something that felt vampiric, but also felt unique. So we didn't just want a clone of a vampire you could find in any other book. And so we tried to dial it in and give him some different abilities and things like that. So it was really cool fighting him, because Barker mentioned it, and I think he nailed it, which was just fighting him felt terrifying. It felt like, especially after what he did to Baron, I was like, wow, okay. And I even was trying to remember, I'm like, what did we give this guy that he just did 86 points a day? And then I rememred, it was due to the circumstances, but Caius Vecus's actual CR rating is a 15, because he's about a 13.5, but then he has levels of paladin spells, because we thought that felt right. And so because he's commanding, he's charismatic, and so we wanted to give him something that wasn't sorcery or wizardry. We thought he would be more of a paladin type, and making him a caster felt pretty interesting. So anyway, Jake, I was really happy with how you ran Vekas as a tactician, because that's in the flavor. And I think that was brilliant. And that's probably the thing that brought him to life the most, was that whole scene of what he did. And I thought, oh man, he's a brilliant tactician. He's having fun. This is fun for Caius Vekas. And I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Yeah. And so I really liked, I liked the way that Vekas was built. I liked that he had the paladin effects. The two things that really worked against Baron was the crit and the fact that of the way that I do crits, where it's automatic max damage. Because while holding the longsword with two hands, he's doing the 1d10 plus 5 in slashing. So there's your or slashing or piercing, I don't remember. But there's your 15 maxed, and then roll that again. But then he's also doing 4d8 of necrotic damage. So that's an automatic 32. And then when I rolled the dice, I rolled 2 8s and a 7 and then like a 4. So I got a really high roll on the damage for the follow-up. So that's why there was this whole big like 80 points of damage. All told, though, that still would have been a lot, even at half of that. A 40-some point attack on a single longsword attack.
I'm not upset by any means that I died, simply because like you didn't like my character wasn't obliterated. You know, I took 8 points of damage, and then I was still only about 12 points over. So it's like, had this been me spec'd in a different way to, you know, give resistance, have a little bit more constitution or something, I would have survived. But, you know, in this run of Dragongrin, I was blown apart. And that's fine.
I think where the way he's built out, I think where Caius Vekas really would stand out more, and in a proper campaign or mini campaign, I would have used him this way as a tactician, is he would be surrounded by marrow and undead soldiers, which play into some of his abilities, bolstering undead, things like that. With things that are built into that sort of the Dragongrin version of vampiric weaknesses. In fantasy D&D normal vampires, you can find a wooden stake just about anywhere. In Dragongrin, Titan Copper is a little harder to come by, so you can almost build a quest around first finding out what his weakness is, and then figuring out how you're even going to get to him to do that in the first place. One thing that I would, if it weren't for the playtest, that I would toy with is... I could almost see, while I love the paladin stuff that's in there, and the choice of spells that he has are very flavored for this tactician. I pictured more of, and would love to try playing Vekas as a battle master fighter. Throwing in superiority dice. I don't know, actually, that's a little more PC as in player character type stuff. Than you even see in certain stat blocks, you know, possibly what I was using for well, actually I was using a champion from Volos for Kiara Jin, and I deliberately avoided using her too much. I didn't want to get in the way as a DM NPC or, you know, whatever. But the champion, I don't know. I guess I think it would be cool to see some tactical elements in there, but that again falls into that. Well, in my Dragongrin, Caius Vekas is a battle master and not a paladin. But just like with anything in D&D, you can reskin that stuff.
Can I mention one thing to that point? We agree with you, and after, I didn't want to confuse things, but after I had already given you the stat block, we actually made one change, and we decided to let you run it the way that you had it first, just to see, almost as a split A/B test. But it was actually it was Matt's idea to add, and we added in a leadership ability. So he actually does have.
I have leadership.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of those things where if I had put in I had some ideas that I wanted to do, and it was already going to be too muddled. we would still be playing. This is one of my commentaries on Dragongrin. Is Dragongrin lends itself very well to people that like to play longer form games. I'm not saying it doesn't work for the shorter form. We were trying to squeeze more into a 2-hour time frame. I generally run in 2.5 or 3. But yeah, there just would have been too much going on there and trying to get all the tactics in place where Caius wouldn't put himself immediately in danger. He would be ordering his troops and would be taking things, trying to hold person or trying to charm person from a distance. And for this short of a playtest, there's a lot of things that he's capable of doing, and I tried to just touch on some of those notes. And I basically made my own Archon because I thought, I'm going to put a little taste of the other playtest and something Dragongrin in here. I totally made up at the last minute. I had a couple options of what that sphere was going to do. If you had used it on Caius Vecus himself, it was totally going to function as a imprisonment spell, 8th level spell, with the chance to either bind him in chains, which he could escape easily as a murder crow flock, or actually imprison him in a small, like basically imprison him in the sphere. But at the last second, I was like, I really like ripping a Desolation Rift in this area. I figured, hey, it's a play test and we're about to end, balls to the wall. So with that, I could easily sit here and talk for another half hour, but I know Tim and I both got early mornings. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Baron's in my time zone in my state. Connor and Barker are on Mountain Time, I believe. So
we're still old men.
Yeah, but this was an absolute blast. Thank you for. Tim actually hit me up a couple months ago asking if I could run something in the not too distant future, and I'm always down to run AbTab stuff. And I was glad to have you guys here. It's an interesting, a unique perspective to get to run the materials for the people that are actually writing it, and see you play it, even though you know what it is. You're not really attacking it from a meta point of view. You're just saying, hey, I get a chance to play in this world that I created. So thank you for entrusting me with your precious your precious written words before they're fully published, and having a hand with this group of players. And I want to mention Drake as well, who participated in the first playtest session. MTD is always down to be playtesters. And be a part of this process with you guys. I cannot wait to get my hands on this book that I helped to kickstart. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we are going to get out of here for the night. I do want to remind you, if you are watching live, to tune in tomorrow night for episode 5. Welcome to the Glitterheim of the Forge of Fury, the Dawnbringers campaign. That I'm running with DM Scotty and Ted from Nerdarchy and Megan from Dice on Ice and Jeremy from Erasmus Expeditions and V from the Crafting Muse. With that, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you all, players. We're going to go ahead and end this stream the same way we end every stream, and you can say it with me if you want.
Hail Satan!